it's Nathan Selove from Oakcroft Films with another edition of Autism Actually Speaking. So this week I wanted to talk a little bit about an issue that's very specific and personal to me. Autism service dogs. So many of you probably saw that video I posted a few weeks ago about getting denied service at a restaurant. After I posted that video, there was a lot of speculation going around as to what exactly an autism service dog does, or what they are, and how a service dog can possibly help someone with autism. So I want to sort of explain exactly, the process that I went through to get Sylvia, the legal rights that service dogs have, and then talk a little bit about what specific actions Sylvia does for me. And hopefully, if you or someone you know has autism, then, maybe you'll consider if a service dog would be right for your own situation. So after deciding on getting an autism service dog to see if it might help my own situation, my parents researched several different service dog organizations, and eventually they came across Susquehanna Service Dogs, which is a service dog organization based in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And so we started the process. After sending them my official physician diagnosis, we were put on a year-long waiting list, which I know that seems like a long time, but getting a service dog is a really big commitment, and it ended up really being worth it in the end. So after being on the waiting list, and after several meetings that I had with people from Susquehanna Service Dogs, they had me come to these Meet the Puppies sessions. Now these Meet the Puppies sessions were basically me meeting dogs that were at the part of their training that they were ready to be placed with a partner. And I went to 2 of these Meet the Puppies sessions, and on the second one, I met Sylvia. So after Sylvia and I were paired together, they took several months to train Sylvia separate from me to meet my own needs as an autistic. And after those months, I came into Harrisburg and I went through this 2.5-week training program with Sylvia, at the end of which we had a public access test that the service dog organization implemented. And Sylvia and I passed that with flying colors. Now, the training for a service dog is really grueling. Most service dogs are in training from the moment they're born, and they're usually placed at around 2 years old. A service dog can't show any signs of aggression, and they have to be housebroken. Now, the training of a service dog is also really, really expensive. Sylvia actually costed $20,000. Now, most of that actually came from donations from our church, from family members, and that's usually the routes a lot of people go. But it's still pretty expensive, and it's a huge commitment. Under the Americans with Disabilities Act, service dogs are granted access to all public accommodations. Sylvia has been in restaurants, airplanes, buses, trains. She even rode Buzz Lightyear with me at Disney World. Now, a service dog cannot just be used for emotional comfort. The Americans with Disabilities Act clearly states that emotional comfort dogs are not actually granted public access. The law requires that in order for an animal to be considered a service animal, it must perform specific tasks to help with a disability. Autism is a social disorder, but it's also a sensory disorder as well, which basically means that the sensory receptors in an autistic's brain are more sensitive to outside stimuli than that of a neurotypical. For example, I do really badly in loud crowds or around loud noises, and sometimes that can cause sensory overload, pushing me into a meltdown. Before I had Sylvia, taking me into stores was really difficult, and taking me to sit-down restaurants just couldn't happen. And my skin is also really sensitive and very easily irritated. Because of this, I can't wear watches, I can't wear necklaces, or really any jewelry for that matter. And I'm very particular about the kind of clothes that I wear. You can ask my mother. Shopping for me is a pain in the... Now I'd like to show you some of the specific actions that Sylvia does to help me with my sensory levels. Now, passively, Sylvia is able to sense my sensory levels and distract me from whatever might be causing me stress and force me to pay attention to her instead. Her fur acts as kind of a passive stress ball. Now, another thing that Sylvia does, which is a more specific action, is called closer. This is where Sylvia will get in between my legs and then sit. Now, this does 2 things. First, it puts her between me and the crowd, and second off, it puts pressure on my legs, which is able to soothe some of the sensory intake. Another thing that she does is called visit. This helps to put pressure and relieve tension as well. Now, although both of these help alleviate stress in most situations, sometimes they're not enough. And when they aren't, and I'm starting to go into sensory overload or meltdown mode, Sylvia will do a lap, where she'll, get on my lap, and she'll apply what's called deep pressure therapy. If things get really bad, she'll do an all-the-way lap, which applies more pressure for the deep pressure therapy. Sometimes she'll also use her body to block the crowd. And she can also shake hands, and give high fives, and even retrieve her leash. Okay, so those last few things don't really help with my disability, but they are still pretty cool things that she can do. Now, obviously, service dogs aren't for all autistics. I mean, if an autistic is afraid of dogs, then it's probably not the best idea. But Sylvia made almost an overnight impact in my life. During that 2.5-week training program, we went to a sit-down restaurant. I hadn't been to a sit-down restaurant in 5 years. Because the last time I went, and every time before that, I just couldn't take it. There was too much. The crowd was too big, it was too loud. I couldn't do it. But after 5 years, I went to a sit-down restaurant with Sylvia, and I had no problems at all. And now I go to sit-down restaurants all the time. If you know someone who has autism, and you think that they might benefit from having an autism service dog, then please, share this information with them. I'm going to link the website to the place that I got Sylvia below. Every day, I hear more and more success stories about people that underwent the process of getting an autism service dog and were able to reap the immense benefits. If you have a success story, please share it on my YouTube or tell me about it on my Facebook. Autistics already have so much to give to society. And with the right help, we can do so much more. If you have any questions or topics you would like addressed, please leave it in the comments below, or message me on my Facebook, also linked below. And remember, if your mother pulls her hair out every time she takes you clothes shopping, you might be autistic.